My name is Khalid Ahmad, and what I'm about to share with you will challenge everything you think you know about life, faith, and love. On February 15, 2024, I experienced something that defies all logic and reason, something that forever transformed my heart, my soul, and the way I see the world. I didn't just come close to death that day, I left this life completely. For 7 minutes and 12 seconds, my heart stopped, and in that brief moment, I was shown truths that shook me to my core. During those precious moments, I encountered Jesus Christ himself, and he revealed to me profound and life-altering truths about love, grace, and the poison of hatred that had consumed me for so long. What I experienced will challenge everything you've been told about forgiveness, faith, and redemption. But before I share the incredible revelations that were entrusted to me, you need to understand who I was and how I came to be standing at the edge of eternity. From a young age, I was taught that Christians were misguided, that their beliefs were flawed and inferior to ours. They were the other, people to be wary of, people who didn't deserve my respect. Over time, this mindset became a part of me, a lens through which I viewed the world. I built my life on this foundation, confident that I was on the right path. I attended mosque faithfully, provided for my family, and worked hard to climb the ladder of success. By all accounts, I was living a good, honorable life. But looking back, I see now that I wasn't truly at peace. My faith was rooted in fear, not love. I thought my devotion to my religion was enough to earn God's favor. What I didn't realize was how far I had strayed from the very heart of what faith is supposed to be. The day my life changed forever started like any other. I was driving to a meeting, my mind occupied with work, deadlines, and the usual stresses of life. It had rained earlier that morning and the roads were slick, but I didn't pay much attention. I was confident. I'd taken this route 100 times before. What I didn't know was that I was moments away from the single most transformative experience of my life. The last thing I remember was the screech of tires, a blinding flash of light, and then nothing. I've replayed those final moments countless times in my mind. The screech of tires, the deafening crash, the jolt of impact as my car was crushed under the weight of a speeding truck. I felt my body slam against the seatbelt, and then, in an instant, the world went silent. My first thought wasn't fear, it was anger. Anger that my life might end here, anger that I wouldn't get to see my family again. Then, like a wave crashing over me, came the realization: I was dying. It's impossible to describe what happened next. One moment, I was in unimaginable pain, my chest heaving as I struggled for air. The next, I felt an eerie calm. The pain disappeared entirely, replaced by a strange lightness, as if I was being unshackled from my body. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did, and I was floating above the wreckage. Below me, I saw the twisted metal of my car, the shattered glass glittering like diamonds in the sunlight. Paramedics were working frantically, their faces tense with urgency, but I felt strangely detached from it all. I watched them pump my chest, shouting words I couldn't hear. Was that really me lying there? It looked so small, so lifeless. I wanted to scream, to tell them to stop, that it didn't matter anymore. But then something pulled me, drew me away from the scene. It was like gravity, but it wasn't pulling me down. It was pulling me up, higher and higher, away from the chaos of the world I had known. The further I went, the more the sounds of the earth faded away, replaced by a silence so profound it was almost musical. I should have felt fear. I should have been panicking. Instead, I felt an overwhelming peace, a peace I had never known before. But then, just as I began to surrender to this strange serenity, I saw it. A light. Not just any light. It was alive, pulsating with warmth and knowledge, brighter than anything I had ever seen. And yet, I couldn't look away. It was calling me, pulling me into its embrace. And in that moment, I knew this was just the beginning. I awoke into a void, a place that was neither warm nor cold, neither light nor dark. It was simply empty. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Was this the paradise I had envisioned my entire life? The reward I had so fervently worked toward? Instead of peace, I was met with confusion, a gnawing unease that echoed through the stillness. I called out, but no words came. My voice, my very essence, seemed to dissolve into the nothingness around me. And then, something began to change. A faint light appeared in the distance, so dim at first I wasn't sure it was real. But it grew brighter, warmer, and with it came a presence. I can't explain how I knew, but I felt it before I saw it. A love so vast, so profound, it seemed to envelop me, penetrating every corner of my being. The light moved closer, illuminating what had been hidden in the darkness. The emptiness around me melted away, revealing a realm of indescribable beauty. Colors I had never seen before swirled in the air, each one alive with its own melody. The very atmosphere seemed to hum with love and peace. In the distance, I heard music, thousands of voices harmonizing in a way that no earthly choir ever could. I should have been overjoyed, but I was frozen in place. Something about this light unsettled me. This was not the paradise I had imagined. This was something else. Then I saw him. Jesus Christ stood before me, his presence radiating power and love so overwhelming I could barely stand. His eyes locked with mine, and I felt as though he could see every corner of my soul, every thought, every action I had ever taken. I expected anger, judgment, but what I found instead was tenderness, compassion so pure it brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I realized just how little I truly understood about love, about God, about anything. My expectations, my certainty, they were shattered. I was left with nothing but awe. "Do not be afraid," Jesus said, his voice resonating through my very being. It wasn't just a sound, it was a truth, a declaration that penetrated my heart in a way words never could. But how could I not be afraid? Here I was, standing before the one I had spent my life rejecting, my heart weighed down by a lifetime of hatred and arrogance. And yet, he wasn't condemning me. He was looking at me with an understanding so deep it left me undone. "Khalid," he said, his tone filled with both authority and love. "You have been blinded by hatred, but you were created for love. Let me show you what you have refused to see." As he spoke, it was as if my entire life unfolded before me. I saw myself as a child, absorbing the prejudices of those around me. I saw how I clung to my beliefs, not out of love for God, but out of fear and pride. I saw the harm my hatred had caused, how it had poisoned my soul and blinded me to the beauty in others. And then he showed me something I will never forget. I saw Christians I had despised, people I had dismissed as inferior, kneeling in prayer for me. I saw their kindness, their humility, their acts of selflessness, things I had written off as weakness. My heart broke as I realized how wrong I had been. Tears streamed down my face, and I fell to my knees before him. Jesus knelt beside me, lifting my face so I could see him clearly. "Love," he said, "not religion, is the key to eternal life. You have built walls where I have called for bridges. You have judged when I have called you to love. But I have not come to condemn you. I have come to set you free." His words pierced my soul. "But how can I be forgiven?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I have done so much wrong." He smiled, a smile so filled with grace it brought hope to the darkest corners of my heart. "My grace is sufficient," he said. "You cannot earn it, Khalid. You can only receive it. And now, I am sending you back to share what you have seen. Tell them, love is my command, and I am the bridge that unites all." As the light around him grew brighter, his words echoed in my heart. I didn't understand everything, but I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same. As I knelt before him, my heart exposed and broken, Jesus stretched out his hand, and suddenly, the world I knew began to dissolve. In its place, visions came, clearer than any memory, more vivid than life itself. "Let me show you," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "See the truth through my eyes." I was taken back to moments I thought were insignificant. I saw myself walking past a group of Christians gathered for prayer in the city square. In that moment, I had sneered at their faith, mocking their perceived simplicity. But now, I saw what I hadn't noticed then. They weren't just praying for their own lives or families, they were praying for me. For me. Strangers who didn't know me, who had no reason to care, lifted my name before God, asking for blessings and salvation for someone who had dismissed and despised them. I saw the love in their faces, a love that had no boundaries, no conditions. And I wept. The visions shifted, and I saw moments where I had let my prejudice dictate my actions. I saw a young Christian man I had berated during a business meeting because of his faith. I remembered how his quiet demeanor and refusal to retaliate had angered me even more at the time. But now I saw what had been hidden from me then. After that meeting, he went home and prayed, not for his own vindication, but for my heart to soften. Every act of love, every selfless gesture I had ignored or dismissed as weakness now stood before me, undeniable and radiant. Their love for others, including me, was rooted in a strength I had never understood, a strength that came from their faith in Christ. And as I watched, I felt the weight of my own beliefs crushing me. My hatred, my pride, had not only hurt others, it had kept me from experiencing this same peace and love. It had blinded me to God's truth and left my soul in chains. Do you see now? Jesus asked, his eyes searching mine. Your hatred didn't harm them, it harmed you. You closed your heart to my love, and in doing so, you kept yourself from the peace you sought. Before I could respond, the visions shifted again, this time to something darker. I was standing on the edge of a vast chasm, its depths swirling with shadows and fire. This, Jesus said, his tone somber, is the path of hatred. The air around me grew heavy as I was shown the truth. Hatred wasn't just a feeling. It was a weapon, a tool of darkness that consumed everything in its path. I saw how it had blinded me to the goodness in others, how it had turned my heart into a fortress of pride and fear. Jesus spoke again, his voice filled with sorrow. Hatred, in any form, blinds my children to the truth. It separates them from me and binds them to the darkness. I saw the consequences of holding on to this hatred. Souls, weighed down by bitterness and judgment, unable to rise, unable to reach the light. I realized that my own hatred had been a chain, keeping me from knowing the freedom and peace that Jesus offered. This is what happens, he said, when you cling to judgment and self-righteousness. No matter how pious you believe yourself to be, without love, you are lost. The vision shifted once more, and I was shown the eternal consequences of refusing to let go of hatred. I saw people crying out, desperate to escape the darkness they had chosen, but it was too late. Their hearts, hardened by years of judgment and pride, could no longer feel the warmth of God's love. They were cut off, not because God had abandoned them, but because they had refused to let him in. Do you understand now? Jesus asked, his voice tender yet firm. This is why I call you to love, to forgive, to let go of pride. Hatred is not just a sin. It is a path that leads to eternal separation from me. It does not matter what religion you follow or how devout you appear. If your heart is filled with hatred, you are walking away from the light. Tears streamed down my face as I fell to my knees once more. Lord, I whispered, forgive me. Teach me to love as you love. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. That is why you are here, he said. Not to be condemned, but to be redeemed. Go and tell them what you have seen. Hatred blinds, but my love sets the captives free. I stood before Jesus, humbled and broken, but what he showed me next filled me with a sense of awe and wonder that words cannot capture. He spoke gently, yet with authority that commanded my full attention. Khalid, what you have known as religion is not what I desire. Christianity is not a set of rules, rituals, or traditions. It is a relationship. It is built on grace, forgiveness, and unconditional love. As he spoke, visions unfolded around me, revealing glimpses of a place I can only describe as heaven. The colors were beyond anything my mind could have imagined, vibrant, alive, and pulsating with joy. But it wasn't just the beauty of the place that captivated me, it was the people. Everywhere I looked, I saw individuals of every race, every background, and every walk of life. Their faces radiated peace and love, their laughter and songs mingling together in perfect harmony. These were not people divided by labels or differences. They were united by one truth. They had chosen love, they had chosen truth, and they had chosen him. I watched as they embraced each other, as they worshiped together, as they lived in a joy so pure it brought tears to my eyes. Jesus turned to me, his eyes full of compassion. "Do you see, Khalid? I came for all, not just one group, not just one nation. My love knows no boundaries, and neither should yours." His words cut through every lie I had ever believed. I realized that my narrow view of God had been nothing more than a reflection of my own prejudice. But here, in this place, there was no room for hatred, no room for pride, only love. He continued, "It is not by works or by heritage that one enters my kingdom. It is by grace. I offered myself so that all might be free, free from sin, free from judgment, free to love. And that freedom is for everyone, if they will only receive it." The weight of his words settled over me, and I realized that everything I had ever strived for, my pride, my self-righteousness, was meaningless compared to the simple, transformative power of his love. As I stood there, overwhelmed by the glory of what I had seen, Jesus spoke again, his tone shifting to one of urgency. "Khalid, now that you have seen the truth, you must return. There is much work to be done." I froze, my heart sinking. Return? Back to the world I had left behind? The thought filled me with dread. "But Lord," I stammered, "how can I go back? I am not worthy to carry your message. My life has been full of hate, pride, and ignorance. Who would listen to me?" Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder, and his touch filled me with a peace I had never known. "You are not called because you are worthy," he said. "You are called because I have chosen you. Your story will bring hope to those trapped in hatred, to those who feel unworthy of my love. Through you, they will see that no one is beyond redemption." Even with his reassurance, I felt overwhelmed. The shame of my past weighed heavily on me. What if they reject me? What if I fail? I asked, my voice trembling. Jesus looked into my eyes, his gaze unwavering. "It is not your strength that will carry this message. It is mine. I will go before you, and I will be with you. You are not alone, Khalid. You never have been." As he spoke, he showed me a vision of my life if I chose to return. I saw myself sharing my story with others, not with pride, but with humility. I saw walls of hatred and prejudice crumble as people heard the truth of his love. I saw lives transformed, families restored, and communities united. But most of all, I saw hope shining in the eyes of those who had once been lost, just like I had been. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the magnitude of what he was asking me to do. "Lord," I whispered, "I am afraid." His smile was filled with compassion. "Do not fear," he said. "My love is greater than your fear, and my strength is made perfect in your weakness. Go, Khalid. Share what you have seen. Tell them that love is the way, that grace is enough, and that I came for all." With those words, the vision began to fade, and I felt myself being pulled back. But his voice echoed in my heart, steady and unshakable. "You are my witness. Go and tell them." I awoke to the sound of muffled voices and the steady beeping of machines. My chest felt heavy, my body weak, but I was alive. The realization hit me like a wave, and as my vision cleared, I saw the stunned faces of my family standing at the edge of the hospital bed. My wife's tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Khalid, you're awake?" The room was filled with a tension I couldn't quite place. I later learned that the doctors had all but declared me gone. My heart had stopped for nearly 7 minutes, and they had begun preparing my family for the worst. Yet here I was, not just alive but fully conscious, a miracle they couldn't explain. The medical staff hovered nearby, whispering to one another in disbelief. They had no answers, but I did. As my body slowly adjusted to its return, my mind swirled with the weight of what I had seen. The memories of the afterlife, of Jesus, of the visions, of the overwhelming love and truth, were as clear as if they had just happened moments ago. I could still feel his presence, still hear his words echoing in my heart. "You are my witness. Go and tell them." But along with the joy of being alive came a deep sense of responsibility. Everything I had believed, everything I had stood for, felt like sand slipping through my fingers. My hatred, my pride, my self-righteousness, they had all been illusions, keeping me from the truth. How could I have been so blind? I lay in that bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of my journey in the spiritual realm. I thought of the Christians I had judged, the love I had dismissed, the opportunities one had wasted. Shame burned in my chest, but beneath it was something new, hope. I had been given a second chance, not just at life, but at truth, at love, at redemption. I knew I couldn't go back to the man I had been. My life had to change, and it had to change now. The days that followed my recovery were some of the hardest I've ever faced. How do you explain an experience so profound, so utterly transformative, to people who haven't lived it? My family listened with wide eyes as I recounted everything. The visions, the warnings, the truth about love and grace. They were shocked, skeptical even, but they couldn't deny the change in me. I began sharing my testimony with others, starting with my closest friends and community. At first, the reactions were mixed. Some dismissed me outright, calling me delusional or even a traitor to my faith. Others listened quietly, their faces unreadable. But then, there were those who wept, who saw the sincerity in my eyes and felt the truth in my words. For them, my story wasn't just a tale of transformation, it was a spark of hope. The backlash came swiftly. People I had once called friends turned away from me, unable to accept the message I had been given. I was accused of abandoning my faith, of betraying my people. It hurt, more than I can put into words. But every time I felt the weight of rejection, I remembered what Jesus had shown me. "You are not alone," he had said, and I held on to that promise. As I continued to share my story, something remarkable began to happen. Walls that had once seemed impenetrable started to crumble. Hearts that had been hardened by hatred and pride began to soften. I saw people from all walks of life, Muslims, Christians, atheists, come together, united by a simple but powerful truth: love is the foundation of all that is good. I devoted myself fully to this mission, traveling wherever I was called, speaking to anyone who would listen. My life, once defined by hatred and division, became a testament to grace and unity. And through it all, I felt his presence, guiding me, strengthening me, reminding me that this was the purpose I had been given. As I write this, I am overwhelmed with gratitude, not just for the second chance I've been given, but for the hope that my story might inspire others. I've learned that no one is beyond redemption, that love truly does conquer all, and that grace is available to anyone willing to receive it. If you take nothing else from my story, let it be this: love is greater than hate, grace is greater than judgment, and Jesus Christ came not for one group, but for all. My prayer is that you will open your heart to this truth and find the same peace and purpose that I did. This is not the end of my journey, it's only the beginning. And I am ready to walk this path, wherever it may lead. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even crazier.